stockbroker, and Jim was born 11 days before the market crash of 1929. Jim made his journey from Chicago to Dallas in a laundry basket in the back seat of a 1929 Hudson. He would spend his entire life in Dallas, and today is known as a great storyteller and historian. He engages his listeners, carrying them back in time to long forgotten places and revealing the secrets hidden away in the dusty attics of time. Please welcome Mr. Jim Gatewood. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Well, boy, that gets the day off to a good start with a tremendous introduction like that. Now, my mission is to tell you about the gangsters and gamblers that came through, some of the bad guys. And I want to start off with a fellow by the name of Clyde Barrow. Now, Clyde Barrow and Bonnie Parker came to a tavern right across the street here from the casino. And there was a fellow by the name of Jack Poe that worked here. And Jack told this story. He had a job in the afternoons after he finished his work here in the horse stables, sweeping up at a dog racetrack. And he noticed that the tickets for the dog races on the different days that they ran were always the same color. So he had an idea. He said, I'll save these old tickets and I'll get a partner and we'll cash them in and we can scam the racetrack here. So that was what was on his mind one afternoon when he was drinking beer after work across there at the tavern. And this lady comes in and sits down beside him and says, "You're a little young to be drinking beer, aren't you?" And he looked at her and he said, "How old do you have to be, lady?" And the two got along famously, and he bought her a 2-cent mug of beer. And they were talking, and she said, "My boyfriend will be," well, he asked her first, he said, "What's your name?" And she said, "Well, my name's Bonnie." And he said, "Well, you got a boyfriend?" Said, "Yeah, he's outside working on the car. He'll be in a minute." "Oh, here, Clyde, we're over here." So Jack Poe is in the presence of Bonnie and Clyde, and they have a few drinks, and he said they were very friendly. They let me drive a brand new Model A Ford that was yellow, taught me how to drive, and said I decided they were the ones that I should let in on my scam with the racetrack, and he did. And of course, Clyde and Bonnie cashed those tickets, and they were asking Jack about the casino, and he told how Fred Browning, when he built a casino, put this great big bank vault in the cellar. But that Fred Browning way underestimated the amount of money and the hurry that the money was going to come in. And soon the vault was full and the money was just laying all over the floor. So Fred decided the thing they should do was to bail the money. And Jack Poe told Bonnie and Clyde, he said, "We have a meeting every Monday morning when Fred gives us our instructions for the week, and we sit around on these bales of money." Well, of course, you don't tell a story like that to Bonnie and Clyde without, you've given them a little insight into what's going on, so they're scheming and they don't know just exactly how to handle this. Now, the year is 1933. And in 1933, there is no FBI. There is a government organization called the Bureau, but they don't have the right to carry guns, cross borders, make arrests, all the things that the FBI needed. And bank robbery was a terrible problem in 1933, and they were sitting around scheming, trying to figure out how can we outsmart these desperados that are robbing these banks. So they decided what they would do. They would take brand new money to the banks and call in the old money so that all the money had, of course, dollar bills had the serial numbers on them. That way, when the banks were robbed, they could trace it back to the robber by seeing who turned in the money. It created a pathway right back to the robber. Well, that created the term hot money, because then when you robbed a bank, the money was no good. But there was a bad guy on the other side of the table named Tom Pendergrast in Kansas City, who was just about as smart as the Bureau was. He had a bank, and he bought that money 25% on the dollar, the hot money that the bank robbers had stolen. And he sold it, and the foreign currency, he'd put it into French lire or Mexican pesos or whatever the best market was for his dollar. Then when he needed the money, he'd take it out of the foreign bank and run it back through his, and he had some of the new money he could use. So he really was in the catbird seat on this bank robbing business. But his bookkeeper, a guy by the name of Jelly Nash, was involved in some mischief, and he got put in jail for 7 years. Tom Pendergrass is very worried because he thinks Jelly will roll over on him and tell some secrets, and that will implode his empire. So he puts a hit contract out on Jelly Nash. They find out that he's being transferred from one jail to the other, and that the Kansas City Flyer will unload him at the Kansas City station. And he hires some hitmen, and Pretty Boy Floyd is one of the hitmen involved in this. So Jelly Nash gets off the train. He's escorted by lawmen, and of course this green Chevrolet rolls up. There are 2 men, one on each running board with machine guns, and 2 men in the back seat with machine guns, and they open fire. They kill everybody in the cop's car that was going to transport Jelly Nash. They kill a member of the Bureau. Now, as a result of this, J. Edgar Hoover, who was head of the Bureau, confronted Franklin Roosevelt and the Congress and demanded that there be a federal bureau that had the right to cross borders, make arrests, and shoot back. And that was the birth of the FBI. But now, getting on with our story, as usually goes with assassinations and big deals, the assassin better watch out, because the people that ordered the hit are going to wipe him out. And sure enough, they got everybody involved in that. The Pendergrass gang got all the shooters except Pretty Boy Floyd. And he made it to Dallas. And the reason he came to Dallas is because there is an area in Dallas described as the Devil's Back Porch. It's a 16 square mile area that was West Dallas. And there was no city jurisdiction there. It was the county sheriff were the only people that could go in there with any authority. And of course, there just weren't enough county sheriffs to go around and take care of the county too. So this was a safe house for the desperados. And the very citadel within this safe house was a place called the Red Brick Hotel. And Pretty Boy Floyd is holed up there at the Red Brick Hotel. Bonnie Parker has read about him and seen his picture in the paper, and Pretty Boy Floyd is her kind of guy. She is a very ambitious lady, and it's her ambition to have the best informed and the hardest hitting bank robbing team in the business. So she makes it a point to go to the Red Brick Hotel and rendezvous with Pretty Boy Floyd. Well, after a couple of bottles of Four Roses and about 4 hours in an intimate afternoon, they know each other real well. And Bonnie explains to Pretty Boy Floyd about the money out here at top of the hill. She says, now what I want you to do, let's set this up. You build your gang, whatever you can. I want to bring in the Barrel Gang, which we know we can count on Clyde. And then there's Raymond Hamilton and Floyd Hamilton. And that would be probably enough of us to pull this off. So the deal starts percolating. Now, Clyde Barrow has got a friend that is in the military, and he sets up a deal over in the armory there, where they keep all the machine guns and tear gas and everything that they'll need for this robbery in Ranger, Texas. So Clyde Barrow and his gang go down to Ranger, Texas, and they bring back the tear gas and the necessary weapons that they need. Now, they plan the heist to be at top of the hill on New Year's Eve, when it changes from 1933 to 1934. They'll hit the place right after midnight, because by that time, Fred Browning's crap tables have had time to take all the money out of all the dignitaries that are there. And they figure there'll be over $500,000 in the till, which there was. There actually was a little more than that. Clyde Barrow steals a flatbed truck that they need to haul the money off, the bales of money. And they release the tear gas. And I was very fortunate, because I got to interview a lady who attended that party, and she and her date were celebrating the New Year's in a parked car out in the parking lot in their own particular way. When they saw all these people running out, and they were coughing and sneezing and wiping their eyes, and of course they learned that tear gas had been released, they didn't know about the robbery. But the robbery did take place, and the Fred Browning, the owner of the casino, of course, couldn't call the police, but he called his good friend Benny Binion. Now, Benny Binion has a good friend who is in the police side of the table. His name is Bill Decker. Bill Decker was the deputy sheriff at that time in charge of criminal investigation for Dallas County. And Bill Decker had more snitches and was better about getting information than probably any other lawman at the time or in our history. You see, Decker, if you were put in jail, he'd come by and see you, ask if you needed cigarettes, find out what your problem was, recommend an attorney. He was the best friend of the people that were admitted, and as a result of this, whenever they could do him a favor, they would. So Decker learned that there was some consternation at the Stoneleigh Hotel, that there were 2 pickup trucks parked there, and there'd been some argument about leaving them there, and it got very rough, and the people that were parking the trucks insisted that this happened. And he thought that was rather strange, but then when he got the information about the robbery at Top of the Hill, he realized this was probably where the bandits were going to rendezvous, split up their loot, and go off in their different directions, and he was absolutely right. So he gave this information to Benny Binion. And when Clyde Barrow and Pretty Boy Floyd arrived at the Stoneleigh to split the loot, take it off the flatbed, one had one pickup truck to put money in, the other one had another pickup truck. Just as they got their truck parked and got out of their car, 6 of Benny Binion's men rose from the parked cars with shotguns and said, "You either drop your weapons right there or you're dead meat." Benny Binion spoke and he said, "Now we've been friends, but since you took Fred Browning's money, we're no longer friends. Now you have a choice. You can leave Fred's money right here and leave town, get out of town, or we'll make dead meat out of you." Well, you heard the guns clatter to the floor, and they took their cars and left, and Benny Binion got Fred Brown's money back. But that's one of the stories I love to tell about Top of the Hill.